Good morning. Can you see? Can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Where's everyone else? They're
They're
coming, right? Hi, Farah.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's not morning for me. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. And
Fair
I've
enough.
already taught a class and been in another class.
okay. So Adam. So Beatrice, I'm gonna ask Adam to put you back in the waiting room. We're not gonna allow participants until 9:45. So we're just trying to get ourselves together. So I'm gonna ask Adam as soon as okay, so. Okay, Adam.
I think Beatrice is still in here.
Yep. Hang on.
You can just take her off and then she can rejoin it. How do you
Yep.
do it? Awesome.
I do need to be the host in order to do breakout rooms with Diane.
Okay. Okay, so does that mean that, am I going to be able to do these slides, or do I need to get Heather to do those?
You made me the host instead of Adam. Adam should be the host. Although you made him the host, which you probably...
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I quite like the power for a minute or two.
Yeah. Okay, so, okay, now I have to reclaim the host, and now I can make Adam the host. Yes. Okay, so.
There we go.
Hi, Mina.
Good morning.
Good to make us all
Hi,
co
Farrell.
Yep.
Hello.
So now, Adam, you can make everybody a co-host,
Yeah.
right? So you're the host now. Okay. Okay.
Jordan is a facilitator, correct?
Yes. Good morning, Jordana.
She's still connecting to audio. She can't hear you yet.
Okay, can you hear me well, or do I need to plug in a different?
No.
Okay.
You sound good.
Okay.
How many facilitators are there going to be again, Diane?
There's 9, and Irina is coming to be a backup facilitator.
All right, so 9 rooms.
Yes.
All right.
So let's count. Okay, so we have, so I'm co-facilitating with Mina. So that's 1, 2.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes, yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then Crystal, Lane, okay. And Nancy.
What about Tina? Oh, Tina's here.
Yeah, she's here.
You're co-facilitating with who?
Mina. There's Mina.
Oh, Mina.
Mina Kim, right.
I apologize. I heard Nina. I'm like, there's no Nina here.
Yeah. So, do we need anything while we're waiting? Everybody got, yeah, you got the link. I think I sent everybody an outline for the, just that so you have it close.
There are 6 facilitating rooms right now. And you said put people in at a random distribution?
Yes.
All right.
And so we're recording already. So it's already set to record. So we're going to record until after the large group session. When we go into breakout groups, we're no longer recording after that. if we can record the last piece, which is a feedback, that would be good. You know, the last, after everything, and we're gathering together in the large group. So everybody knows Adam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good.
Hi, Adam.
It's been so
We saw
long.
each other yesterday. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Hardest working man in Zoom, huh?
Harder than the programmers, I'll tell you that much. But
Yeah.
oh no.
Adam, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
So sometimes I have issues with sound on this computer, and usually it's if my headphones are plugged in, which they're not right now. But if I have like issues that come up, if I call in, will that like mess up anything on your end? Like if I keep the video on my laptop and call in through my phone?
No, but I'd have to readmit you.
Okay.
But I'd readmit you and I'd have to move you. And I don't know how moving people works in breakout rooms.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine. You can just move someone, right? You can, yeah. Oh no, I know you can rearrange beforehand, I guess.
So it's
I've
not
never
like,
done a breakout room with a person on a cell phone because I know there might be a.
Yeah.
Adam, should we set up, I think we did it in June and we did it yesterday. Should we set up a, what do you call it? A text situation in case there are issues? Diane, what do you think we had it last time? I mean, not everyone has to be in it, but like if a
Oh, you mean,
participant
in
is
case
having a
there,
problem, we can
yeah.
reach Adam.
hi Heather.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Heather,
we
hi
did that
there.
before. Heather set that up. Maybe she can answer that.
Sorry, I just put my headphone in. What's up? Hi, good morning, guys.
Hey, Heather.
Good
Heather,
morning.
do you remember in June we set up, and I don't remember how many people were on it, we set up a text situation to Adam so that we could inform him, or you could. I
Oh,
think I was in there,
sure.
like if people are having a technical problem.
Yeah, let me give everyone Adam's phone number. I'll put it in the chat right now.
What you can also do in the Zooms is you can ask for help,
Yes,
Yeah,
you
that'd
can
be
do
good.
that.
and Adam can be the help that comes.
Yeah.
Right, because our out of US folks won't be able to just text Adam.
I have WhatsApp. You can
Oh,
text me.
okay, cool. Oh, hey, Adam. Sorry, I'm awake. Okay, you can give them your phone number. Actually, I think I got it. I think that's it,
Yeah,
right?
you did.
So yeah, Diane, can you just reshare the slides with me because I don't know
Yeah,
if you...
I sent them to your email.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
just
the version you sent to me, it's only the PDF version. So
oh yeah,
so
okay.
share the slides.
Okay.
Who is the last facilitator? We're missing one.
Crystal,
Yeah.
Crystal.
Crystal. She's not here yet.
what's the code for your number, Adam? What code do I put in?
001.
01.
Zero,
01.
just 01, not 00.
I think it's 01, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm just having my breakfast, so I'm gonna get off video.
Cool. Okay.
You don't
I'm
need-
gonna
you
get
need
some
to.
coffee. So everybody else is a co-host, and just Diane, when you come back, make sure to make Adam and I co-hosts as well.
Oh, yep. I'm already the host.
Oh, you're a host. Oh,
I'm the
well,
host because I have to do the breakout rooms.
all right. I don't think this is one of our people, so we're not gonna let it's not a facilitator in the waiting room.
No, the only one we're waiting for is Crystal.
Let them wait. All right. Yay, I'm a co-host. How's everyone doing this morning?
Asia?
We're okay. Yeah.
how are you
Doing
doing?
well.
Solid okay. That feels
Yeah.
fair. I'm really excited. You're gonna do another program with the youth.
Oh yeah. I'm excited too.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Okay, so
Should we do a check-in of how we are or anything?
Yeah, that's a great idea, Raggy. I think that was my lame attempt at doing that, but Yeah, how is everybody? How are you doing, Raggy?
Super tired. I just taught a challenging the dynamics of racism class, and then I got up at 5 till 7 in the morning to be in a class in Australia. So I'm like, my day is done. I'm just about to start a 5-hour fucking thing, and I'm like, really?
Okay, Heather, I don't see a way to send this through the mail as if it's not a PDF. So I just
No, you just go to the Google Slides presentation. Go to slides.google.com and find the presentation. And just
I'm in here. Do I have to go somewhere else?
you just have to press the blue share button in the upper right.
Yeah, I did that. So I shared it. So now you should check and make sure you can.
Okay.
Biggest the Zoom frame gets.
You just sent it to everyone with
As
a
a
link.
PDF.
As a PDF, but she needs it as
By Google Slides.
Yeah, to be able to edit it.
That's
be able
good.
to even.
Does anybody else see it? Has it been shared with anybody else?
I have it. Yeah.
Okay, can you try to?
No, but you won't. Okay, so Heather, I just shared this with you.
Okay, let me just check and see.
You want me to
Okay,
share?
here we go.
Okay.
It's PDF again.
Okay.
What you can do is you can add her to your slides, right?
Yes.
As a participant to your slides. And
It
then
says that you're shared on it, on the one that I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
that's really weird. My HMAC okay.
I'm gonna send you a link now, and then you should be able.
Okay, yeah, if you send me the link, that'd be even easier, but I don't know why it's not showing it to me. Not owned by me. Let's see. Shared with me.
Okay.
I've said how I am. Although I just had burger and chips, right? Double burger and chips in celebration, right? Because I've been so good, done so much work, right? So I got really bad for me food delivered. So I'm feeling kind of happy.
I think that's called self-care.
I really like food where it's really bad for me, right? I feel good about that.
Yeah.
How's everyone else doing?
I'm okay.
So Crystal's coming.
Cool.
Yeah, she had she started having an allergy attack on Thursday,
Oh,
and
no.
so she's dealing with that. I've had that before. I know.
It's not been good. This past 2 weeks have been. I
Yeah.
had to get my COVID test the other day because I was like, oh my God, I don't have COVID. I have allergies. I thank you for asking, Raggy. I'm doing a little bit better because this is a really good thing to focus on. My brain has been not good. I've been very, 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 very anxious about all the things happening in our country and in my country. And yeah, but the Celtics won last night, and that was a big deal. So I'm feeling good about that, and I'm feeling good about being here with y'all today.
So are we set to do at 9:55 the war?
Yeah, I got it all, and I got the slides. We're just doing a quick check-in, Diane. Do you want to tell us how you're doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm doing great.
Okay, that's not. What about you, Tina? How are you doing this morning?
I'm hanging in there.
That's good. That's good.
That's real. That's real. Any more you want to speak on that, or just let that be? You can let that be. Yeah, I feel you. How about you, Mina? How are you doing this morning?
I'm all right. I just spoke to my aunt who hasn't been doing well, but it's her birthday today, and she sounded like she was in good spirits. So I'm happy about that and happy to be here with you all too.
Good.
Thanks for asking.
Good wishes for your aunt.
So
Happy
there's
birthday.
Irina. She should come in. She's going to back up in case we need a backup.
Irina. Yep. She's in. Sorry, I just realized there was going to be a noise for everybody else. That's not fun. Must have missed that setting.
I guess so.
Diane, are we already assigned to a room number, or is Adam just going to put us in?
Who do you think I am?
Oh, I know. I shouldn't even ask. After yesterday, you're the magician. Let me be quiet. It's all organized. Okay.
And I guess it depends how many people actually turn up.
Yeah.
It's hard to organize it beforehand because
Right.
third won't come, maybe.
You're in room 3, Jordana. 2,
Oh,
rather.
thank you. Like yesterday, okay.
Did you test it all out yesterday? Is that what you were doing? You were like a practice run.
Huh?
Did you have a practice run? Did
Oh,
you
no, I did another event yesterday with, there
Oh.
were 66 people. So, and Adam was the person who handled, there were like 6 breakout rooms and
Wow.
issues, and it was like, magically done beautifully. So, yeah.
No.
Awesome. How are you doing, Jordana?
Well, I'm tired. I'm stressed like everyone else. Have a lot of big changes going on in my life, big, huge ones with work and relocating. I'm probably getting an eye infection this morning, so I'm not happy about that, but it's not obvious. So I decided not to wear an eye patch. So, but I'm always very happy to do these events. I'm never too tired. So.
Yeah. Kathy, how you doing?
Doing okay. Yep, not too tired. Slept later than I usually do, so I'm good.
Nice.
I'm usually up early.
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, I'm the after school person too, so I take advantage of that. I am not waking up before 9 most
My
days.
first week of the virtual learning, so it's been an interesting thing.
Oh man, I would love to talk with you about that at some point. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
How about Pharaoh? How are you doing, Pharaoh?
I'm doing fairly well. Pretty good spirits.
Good. Cool. Who we miss? Lane is eating breakfast. Irina. Hi, Irina. Is it Irina or Irina?
Irina.
Oh, okay, cool. Hi, Irina.
Hey, Heather. Hey, everyone. Good
We're
to be
just checking in, saying
Yeah.
how we're doing.
I'm hanging in there. You know, it's been kind of a rough time over here, but happy to have this day cleared out and part of the event. Just support any way I can. Good to see all of you.
We're all being blessed by my cat right now. That was, if anyone says a black cat crossing your path is very good luck in this family. So cool. Is that everyone?
Tina, Mina.
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna grab a little bit of coffee, but I think everything's queued up on my end, Diane. Maybe you guys will be entertained by my cat.
Okay.
Some people haven't checked in.
Yeah.
And Mina and Lane.
Yeah, we're just.
Mina checked in.
Crystal said she's
waiting on Lane.
She's coming.
Eating breakfast. Yes. And Crystal's coming. All right.
I'm so excited about Trump's Supreme Court pick. I'm really, I never, I am so busy, I don't get a chance to watch TV. So I've been really upset that I haven't watched The Handmaid's Tale because I heard it was really good. So I'm really experienced in just having it like all the time.
What does it mean to watch The Handmaid's Tale? I thought we were living in it.
That's what I was saying.
That's the joke.
We're about to enter it. Yeah.
Hilarious.
I'm only here in the coffee. Give me about here, and then I'll wake up.
So
I got about another 5 minutes to finish.
I looked at Trump's thing and I looked her or him up, right, and sounded awful. Is it really that bad?
Nightmare. Oh, it's a nightmare. It's like a horrific,
really
terrible nightmare. It's the worst. It's the worst thing. We're prepping for a coup, so that's where we're at right now in our. Would you say that's right, Pharaoh?
Would I say we're prepping for a coup? I don't know how successful a coup might be. I've heard statements from the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying they wouldn't be in support of that, and I feel like that's a major executive source of where success for something like that would have to come from. So I guess I'm optimistic that won't happen, but it's a pretty terrible situation to have to be optimistic about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Pharaoh. It was both grounding and realistic.
Crystal.
Crystal's here. Okay, I'm just gonna get coffee. And we'll be ready at 9:55. Give me 1 second.
Mina, did you check in? I'm still concerned that people didn't check in.
Oh, I checked in.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm also gonna get some I'll be back.
Morning, Crystal.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Crystal,
Good
how you
morning.
doing?
You.
I'm okay.
We're gonna have to.
How are you? So did we not tell people they should be here at 1:45? So does
Yes,
that
yes, we
does
did.
that mean the waiting room at 1:45, or does that mean in the main room?
That means.
No, I think we just said it would open at 9:45.
Ah,
So
okay, got it.
I think they didn't have to be there, but they
Yeah.
could be there. Looks like there was what, 26, I don't know how many are in the waiting room.
14.
Yeah, I think 14. Should we let them all in? We ready?
Well, let's hear from Crystal first on
Oh
her.
yeah, hi Crystal.
Hey, sorry, I'm like still just trying to get my life together. I broke out in hives during our last meeting. You guys probably saw I was like itching at our last meeting.
Did you
So
say that?
yeah, my body is like kind of being a little rebellious.
That's
Yeah, but I'm okay. I just need like 5 minutes to just like finish getting my life together.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you guys can do your thing, but I'm good on other than that.
Cool. I think all we're gonna do is open it up and start playing some music, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
We're
so
glad
this-
you're here,
okay,
Crystal.
Okay, this
Thank
is my
you.
question. Should we start exactly at 10 o'clock? That's the question. Because soon after we start, we're going to go into the meditation. We have 15 people in the waiting room. There are going to be a lot of people still coming, and we've got this noise going on. So,
Let me just play a few songs. You know, you can just let me know. I'll just play more Bob Marley if you want.
yeah, that's fine, except I'm just pointing out that pushes the time back.
Yeah, I don't know if we.
Maybe you can just say at 10 o'clock, we're just waiting a few minutes and play a second song. We're just making a few, and then we start, right?
Yeah, 10:05 I would
Can't
say
really
would be.
wait if people have got up to start.
Okay. Okay.
What do you think, Diane?
Yeah, it's just that we have about 20 minutes between me and Farrell, and so it's pretty packed what we want to say.
Exactly.
And so that 20 minutes we're going to need wherever it, however it comes. So yeah, let's do that. I don't want to wait, but I also,
Right.
I think we can go ahead.
Okay. So
At
we're
10:05. 10:05 is good.
So, okay, do you want me to open it up now and start playing some music? And then, okay, cool. And then you just let me know in the chat if you want me to keep playing music. I'll start with War.
Yeah,
soundtrack.
start with War. That's
why not?
That's about the
That's
battle
okay.
lines are drawn. Let's have a war. Let's do it.
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, I need that energy.
Oh, Raggy. That's what I need. I need it. All right.
Yeah.
We now have 20. They're coming in. Are we good?
Yes.
Ready?
Good
All right.
team.
on that note, here we are, and let's get started. So I am Diane Wong, and I welcome everyone to this retreat. We have worked really hard doing this. We've practiced, we've gone into our own anti-Black racism, and I know for sure it is uncomfortable. And so it's not, we're not here to be comforted. These are significant times that we're in, and we are all here for this time. We're all here for this time. And so as we, the Racial Justice Collaborative, have thought about what can we do? What is the single thing that everybody can do that will make a difference? Not only make a difference, will change the world. We can change the world. We will change the world. There's no option. We will do this. And so why are we doing anti-Black racism? If we're looking out, and we'll talk about that all day today, but looking out at all of our worlds and our society and our societies and our neighborhoods and our people, the one thing that we all have in common to a bigger or a smaller degree is anti-Black racism. Why do we have this in common? And so more importantly, before I even go into why, the time for blaming and shaming is over. There are other things that will come up that will be dealt with later, but this blaming game, whose fault is it? That totally doesn't matter now. What matters now is that what can we do to change that so that we can join together? Look at all of us. We've got white supremacy making a big move, not only in the United States, in the world. So white supremacy and a fascist approach to life is sweeping the planet with possibility. And so what stands between that life and the freedom, that the collective freedom that we aspire to? We do. We are the ones that can make the difference. And so and this is not hard, but it takes concerted effort. And the first part of that effort is to recognize that we all share in this. How does this happen that we all share in it? Well, if you were here at the last retreat, we talked about centuries ago and for the United States and how the country started, and the thought, the idea that was there. It was always white supremacy. It was always that. And so to have white supremacy on top, what's at the bottom? What is the target? What does white supremacy target to make people, gel people together to say that we're going to have a white supremacist society? It's because Black is at the bottom. It's the opposite, Black. And Black people have always, if you look at in sociology reports, you always see this report that says it's Black people at the bottom. And why is that? Because we think that, and our thoughts gel, we believe that. And we start off hearing people like Judge Taney in the Dred Scott case, when the country was just forming in the Constitution, and the whole issues of the Constitution. We start there, but then we pour that out generation after generation. We say it, we believe it, and pretty soon it's in every cell in our body. So then as we give birth to new generations, in our nuance, with their mother's milk, with every drop of water they drink, they're getting the idea that there's something wrong with black. We even, it's the white hat is the good one. The black horse is the bad one. The black cat is bad. So in our language, everything. Now, we're going to work on that. We can get out of that, because just like it gets in, it can come out. We're going to have to work on it. All of us, white people, people of color, all varieties, black people. And it really hurts black people, in my opinion, as a black woman, significantly more, because not only do we, in ways we believe in white is right, white supremacy, white on top. We believe because that looks like the norm. And we believe it. But when we believe that, what does that mean? We believe the black inferiority comes back, cuts us in the heart. Because it's me. It's about me. So that's enough of a welcome. Welcome to our retreat today. We're so grateful that you came. And let's start with meditation. Let's get grounded. Let's relax. Let's relax. So you hear my voice starting to come down. So everybody take a deep breath in and keep breathing. Open up your chest. Keep inhaling into your arms and into your head. And then open up your mouth and release everything. Ah, 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 ah. You're all on mute so you can release. And let's take another deep breath in. And this time on the exhale, we're going to relax. So we're going to exhale and relax. Take a deep breath in, slow deep breath in, into your face, down into your arms, into your hands, into your belly. And then open your mouth when you're ready and exhale all the tension, all the stress from inside the body. Ah, ah, open mouth exhales. Release tension and stress from inside the body. So one last big inhale, spread it all out into all the cells in your body. Open your mouth, let it all go. Ah, ah, out of your neck, out of your back, out of your shoulders. Release, release, release. And so let's start relaxing these body parts. Body likes to hear you say relax. So relax your eyes, hardworking eyes. Relax your nose, the breath. Relax your temples, your cheeks, the bridge of your nose, nostrils, relax, mouth, shoulders, arms, hands, on down the body, chest, waist, hips. Oh, let everything relax, knees. Just feel it relax and feel the tension pouring out. Now take that relaxation into your mouth and relax your inner cheeks and your upper gums. Your teeth relax, soften, and take that relaxation into the tongue and down the tongue, down into the throat, and relax the whole tongue. Relax, let the tongue relax. Now down in the throat from the inside of the body. Relax and feel into the chest. Relax and really just feel it all give way. Your sternum, the low belly, and start to make some space in this chest cavity. And now breathe into your heart. The heart chakra, 7 major chakras in the body. The heart chakra is all this whole chest cavity. And today we're going to focus here on our heart. So as you're going through this with me, put your hands here on your chest, on your heart, and take a deep inhale into your heart and release tension. Exhale, exhale. And breathe with every breath into your heart. Let's set an intention. And the intention is that the universe is sending out wave after wave of energy. So let's pick up the energy from the universe that is love. We intend to draw the energy from the universe that is love. With each breath, we draw in love. Draw that into the heart with each breath. Draw in love and let it expand your chest, and more love and more, and expand. Let your expansion get bigger. Let the love coming into your heart expand beyond your heart, out into your aura, down into your low body, up over your head. So now your whole aura, 8 feet out away from your body, filled with love. We must fill ourselves with love. Love is the energy of creation. And if we don't have love inside of us, we can't give it out. So let's take in more love. And today, as we go through the work that we're going to do, every time you bring your awareness to your consciousness, just take in a deep breath and know that you're filling up your heart space with love. So see everything, hear everything today from love, from the energy of love. Because what we're going to do today is going to start us on a path where we can work together. Black people, white people, Asians, Latinos, Native people, Indigenous, all of us need to work together. We must work together. And that is what we're going to do. So we have a few. Relax that meditation, relax your shoulders, let's let it all go. And Heather's going to take us through some information about the day.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. It's wonderful to see so many faces. And thank you, Diane, for that great introduction. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the group norms that we've established for today, but I am going to share this with everybody. So I'm going to put this document in the chat if you want to take a look at this yourself. But these are some of the group norms that we've established for today, and I'll just briefly touch on a few very important ones. So the first one is technology norms. So as you've noticed, we use the chat a lot. We welcome you to react and share how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and affirm when you hear something that you agree with using the chat. Because there's so many of us, that's the best way to kind of communicate in our large group. We are going to have smaller breakout groups that we're going to really encourage you to to participate actively in, and I'll talk about that in just a sec. One really important thing that we didn't kind of establish for the last retreat was between the morning and afternoon sessions, we have a lunch break, but please don't close the Zoom because then we have to spend a lot of time readmitting everybody. So you can just turn your video off, turn your microphone off, and then turn it back on when it's time to come back. That makes it a lot easier for us. just as was modeled with our opening meditation, a big thing today is self-awareness. So really trying to situate yourself and pay attention to your bodily reactions throughout the day, and think about, you know, where you have tension, where you have reactions, what you're feeling, and honor and acknowledge that, and also to lean into it, right? We want to call this a safe space, but not a comfortable space, as Diane said in the opening remarks. We want people to take risks and be authentic and be vulnerable. And this work requires you to be uncomfortable. So that doesn't mean you're unsafe. Certainly you can talk about if you know, and step up and speak if you have felt harmed by other people, what people are saying, or by something that's happening. We want you to address harm and speak out. And you can also, if you are somebody who was offended or hurt by something that someone said, please do speak up. One way to say it is just saying ouch, and then you can address that, right? Surfacing it so that it can be addressed. Speak from your truth. We all have different experiences and backgrounds. We're coming to this for many different reasons and with many different experiences behind us. So use I statements. Try to speak from your own personal experience. Don't make assumptions about other people's experience, and focus on yourself. Calling in versus calling out. I think people are hopefully familiar with this, but just inviting people to a healthier and more accurate understanding rather than calling them out or separating, right? Pushing somebody away, it can be really damaging for everybody, right? So what we're trying to do in this space by building this brave space and this not comfortable space, but a brave space, is allowing people to address harm in a way that's healthy and authentic, but doesn't shut somebody out because they said the wrong thing, right? And so when we're in the conversations, especially in the breakout rooms, we definitely encourage you to speak up. Don't stay silent, but also be aware of how much or how little you're talking, especially, think about yourself and how your race might be impacting that. As a white person, I often feel like my voice is more important. So making sure that's an internalized white supremacy. So making sure that I'm thoughtful about that and stepping back and making room, especially for non-white people in the space to speak up. And with that, I'll stop talking and hand it back to Diane.
Thank you, Heather. Can we have the first slide? Can we start the slideshow now? We have a slideshow to help us move through this material.
There we go.
So here we are. This is Sitting in the Fire 2, and we're calling it Restorative Circles. We're sitting in the fire because when you sit in the fire, you burn out everything that isn't the dross. You refine yourself and everything. And that's what we're doing by sitting in the fire. That's why it may not be comfortable, but it is important. It's important work, and we're going to make it through this. The restorative circles, we've created an interactive, not panel, not talking heads. We're not doing that. And so we're encouraging, and we're going to do more of circles where everybody is participating together. One of our, the Racial Justice Collaborative is putting this on. And one of our principles is that every voice must be heard. So as we put that out as a principle, we're also aware as these voices that must be heard to the extent possible to govern yourself. Say what you need to say, but say it in a way that can be heard or felt. So the agenda for today, here we are, we're in the welcome, the guided meditation. Pretty soon we're going to do the introduction. We've got a large group process coming up. Now watch that process carefully, all participants, because we are modeling what you're going to do in your small group. Exactly the same thing. We're going to be working with a set of questions. You're going to have the same questions. So this modeling is for you. So then we have a half an hour lunch. We're all at home. It doesn't take long to eat. Then Crystal is going to come on. She's a member of the collaborative. She's going to come on and give us some direction, some understanding of a tool, an action tool that she has adapted that's going to help us create an action plan for ourselves. Then we go to the second small group meeting where we're going to do what Crystal just talked about. Then we reconvene in the large group. When we reconvene in the large group, we have a survey that somehow will magically appear for people. So we're asking everybody, maybe it'll be in the chat. I don't know how, Heather will handle that. But we're asking you, before you leave, fill out the survey so that we can be guided on our next steps. This is a step, but we've got more steps to take. So can we go to the next slide? Okay, here we are. We did the norms. Anti-Blackness. That's the crux of what we're doing today. Anti-Blackness, how does it manifest? And I'm going to call on Pharaoh to go through this next set of how anti-Blackness manifests.
Thank you. So before we go into the more group-based circle aspects, it's really important that we have a strong foundation for understanding of core concepts so that we can make the best out of the time that we have for those group discussions. So in order to get onto some of the later terms, it's important to define something that's a very commonly reoccurring concept in a lot of these conversations, which is the concept of white supremacy, which, as you can see here, is defined as a historically based, institutionally perpetuated system of exploitation and oppression of continents, nations, and people of color by white peoples in the nations of the European continent and their cultural successors, which is to say, such as countries as the United States, Canada, Australia, etc., for the purpose of maintaining and defending a system of wealth, power, and privilege.
Okay.
So, another term which is highly related but is important to define separately is the concept of Eurocentric racism, hereby defined specifically and identified specifically as Eurocentric racism, the marginalization and oppression of Black and other people of color based on socially constructed racial hierarchy that privileges white people. So this specific format that we're seeing here, you can see is specifically directed from the European context. It is one of the most common concepts, I'd say is the most dominant concept of this field in any Western nation, and a majority of countries that were heavily influenced and still directly or indirectly influenced by Western powers. This is usually the underlying concept that is behind a lot of these more subversive concepts.
Next.
So, institutional racism is important to define because there is a difference of scale and also reaching influence when you're describing institutional racism versus interpersonal racism. A lot of the time, institutional racism is much harder to see in addition to that because interpersonal racism is generally much more blatant and can often be much more visibly offensive to one's personage. And so that's usually making it more visible. But institutional racism, as we can see here, is defined as social, economic, legal, political, and other systems and institutions that perpetuate racial inequalities, including access to housing, schooling, accumulated wealth, high-paying jobs, etc. So those things are all greatly important, but because the aspects of the inequality around those things in racial circles is baked into the framework of those institutions, it is oftentimes a lot harder to see.
Next.
So now we get to anti-Black racism specifically, a specific kind of racism directed towards Black people. Anti-Blackness devalues Blackness and dehumanizes Black people. The first form of anti-Blackness is overt racism. The second form of anti-Blackness is unethical disregard for Black people, as seen in the cases of police or civilian brutality against Black bodies. So it's important to define anti-Black racism here. So we're going to be talking about how this is set apart from various other concepts. As we had previously defined Eurocentric racism as being forms of racism against people of color. And it is important to note how there are shared experiences in racism between peoples of color, but it's important to not let that be confused with thinking that all forms of racism are uniform between all minorities, because that isn't the case. There are important differences in how those things can manifest, and if we blind ourselves to those things for the point of oversimplification or generalization, then it makes it so that we aren't equipped with the knowledge or the tools necessary to appropriately tackle those issues. So here we're defining specifically anti-Black racism in this definition and context.
Next.
Internalized anti-Blackness. So as you can see here, just as there's a system in place that reinforces the power and expands the privilege of white people, there's a system in place that actively discourages and undermines the power and self-worth of Black people and mires them in their own oppression. So this is a very important part of anti-Blackness, and it's often a way in which Black people subconsciously take in various effects of the systems of institutionalized racism around them, and then we can often perpetuate those things internally. Oftentimes, I would say most of the time, it is completely unintentional, and it is often different aspects of inferiority and sense of inferiority around your race and features around your race that then in turn are projected onto your children and so on until it becomes intergenerational issues that become, in certain manners, institutions of their own within the own internal community.
Next.
Lived internalized anti-Blackness. So this is sort of describing the process and the system of how internalized anti-Blackness manifests on a both individual basis and also on the institutional basis that I had described. So we have Black individuals and the community are repeatedly victimized by racism. This can be both in overt ways and in subversive ways. Racist ideas are believed, taken inside, internalized. And then ideas, beliefs, actions, and behaviors develop that support and collude with racism. More than just a minor consequence of racism internalized, racism is a clandestine oppression and reaction to racism that has a life of its own. So as I was saying, these things aren't always as blatant as someone might think. These things can manifest in aspects as subtle as being bombarded with, frequent depictions and beauty campaigns that show that beautiful hair is straight hair. And so it might not immediately come off as something blatantly bigoted, but over time, the more you present one aspect, which is very rarely found naturally in Black people, as being beautiful, the converse of that becomes true, which is eventually it'll be internalized that Black features, whether that be, naturally kinky hair or wider nose or darker skin tone or thicker lips, eventually gets shifted more and more towards being seen as ugly, even though it's not inherently said all the time, because the adverse is always presented as the opposite. Logic naturally forces you to put yourself in that box. And then when you're placed in that situation and that situation gets passed down to your children, that is how these systems are perpetuated through entire generations and become so normalized in society. The ultimate result of internalized oppression. It's not the world that was my oppressor, because what the world does to you, if the world does it to you for long enough and effectively enough, you begin to do it to yourself. James Baldwin. And that is a quote from a how this process worms its way into you like a parasite until it becomes indistinguishable. And at that point, you are just as much a part of putting yourself down as the systems around you are in gearing you towards that final outcome.
Next. Thank you, Pharaoh. And so now I'm going to talk here and introduce the body of what we're going to do. And as I've looked at how to present this information, something happened that really struck me. And I did some research and I found that in 1944, I always thought about it as the 1964 Civil Rights Act that talked about hearts and minds and how hard they are to change. But in 1944, America was beginning to emphasize this focus on hearts and minds to end what it perceived as its racial problems. And this prioritized education and moral persuasion. It's the right thing to do. We heard this for a long time, even to business, until we started to realize that it's the economically prudent thing to do. But we looked at it, it's the right thing to do, and that moved almost nobody. So this approach was attractive to many white Americans. Why? Because it allowed them to condemn individual prejudice, and they didn't have to give up their privileged access to better jobs, better housing, better schools. And I don't have to say to any one of you to convince you of this, because we all know this is true. So Heather, next. And at the same time, this is what struck me so importantly, at the same time that America, white America, was stressing hearts and minds, here is what the Negro wants. In 1944, the Negro wants first-class citizenship, equality of opportunity, equal pay. It doesn't mention your hearts and minds. Equal protection of the laws, equality of suffrage, equal recognition of the dignity of the human being, and abolition of public segregation. Now, some of this has moved and shifted. We don't have to sit in the back of the bus, but we're segregated fully. And a huge, big problem that we have is our physical segregation. We live in different places, and so we don't know each other easily. So we have to come to things like this to figure it out. Heather, next. Here we are today. That was 1944. The world is now grasping and grappling with racism and anti-Blackness. And it's so strong, and because of technology, and because Black people keep not getting killed, they're being murdered on our streets by our officers of the law. They represent us. They are us murdering Black people on the street. Next. So now, okay, what can we do? How do we rectify this anti-Blackness? First, we must understand and identify the ways it manifests. Now, I talked about some of those. We're going to talk about more next. First, something we all feel and understand, interpersonal manifestations. Now, how do you begin to look at that? Just ask yourself, where do I live? Who are my friends? Who do my children play with? Next. And then we go to other manifestations. You hear Black people speak in your meetings, and you can see the ideas. If you watch, you'll see that the ideas are dismissed. You're expecting Black criminality when it's built into us. You know, it's what we understand, what we've learned. When we hear the TV start to talk about something happened to somebody, and we kind of tune in, and we're expecting certain kinds of behavior to be Black criminality. We doubt Black intelligence. We don't want to, if we're at work, we don't want to work with the Black coworker because we want to get rewarded. We want a good job, and we don't think that person is intelligent. We go to places, to the theater, wherever we go, and we see people, maybe they're dressed up, and we say, oh, that must be a servant. this doesn't come into your mind. See, that's the thing about anti-Black racism, or especially anti-Black racism. You don't have to think about it and say it to yourself and then carry it out. It's an automatic. You see somebody, you hand them your glass. You treat, well, Black people are treated suspiciously. And that's this whole following you around, and even myself. And I'm not a young woman, but I'm aware when I go into a store, there are certain things that I do, even today. So I'm not going to go walk close to the door where it looks like with anything in my hands, because somebody might think I'm getting ready to run out the door. So there are just all of these things that you do, that you've accommodated to live in this society. And if it's for me, and I'm as old as most of you out here, and older than most, if it happens for me, what is it like for a person Pharaoh's age, a young Black man? What about, and how many times can this happen where we internalize it, but we also resent it? We resent it, treated, expecting our work to be inferior, just treated rudely and disrespectfully. So those are the interpersonal things. But if you really want to look at yourself, where do you live? Who do your kids play with? Where do they go to school? What is that like? Because people, they want what they consider best. And this what you have is what you consider the best that you can do. Next. Now, okay, the institutional manifestations. Next. Our school systems, our employment discrimination, our housing, voting, the criminal justice system, the access to health care that we're all hearing about as we look at essential workers, and we see who they are, and they don't have health insurance. And why is that? That's a whole different question. Food deserts, the racial wealth gap. Now, Heather, I don't know if can you look back at the 1944, what does the Negro want slide? Can you bring that up? So put that in your mind, what it is that, okay, here it is. This is what struck me. Here we are in 2020, and we're looking at healthcare, and we're looking at the wealth gap, and we're looking at schools, and we're looking at all the same things that we said that we want first-class citizenship, and it is still just a mirage. It's a mirage because it seems like everybody can see it, but for Black people, it's not our lives, it's not our lived experience. So Heather, can you take it back to the next after that next? And now, okay, now here we are. We have to do both. In 1944, we had white America wanted to look at the hearts and minds, and Black America wanted freedom. They wanted we wanted first-class citizenship. So now what do we have to do in 2020 when things are really escalating? We have to do both. We have to clean up the hearts and minds, and we have to work passionately. And why do we have to still clean up the hearts and minds? Because look at the whole George Floyd murder. George Floyd murder. I live in Somerville, and I'm on Fresh Pond a lot. I saw white people on Fresh Pond with signs that said Black Lives Matters, and they kept that up for a long time. And I saw white people all over the world where no Black people live. And what's happening now? It is receding. We're going back to normal. And what is normal? Our normal is anti-Black racism, because nothing has changed inside of us. We can't sustain an external reality that does not match with who we are on the inside. We have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And that's what we're going to do, starting today, if we're not already doing it. Next. And we have to do this continually. So here is looking at external, the external institutional. Look at each structure, housing, employment, education, and look at it individually. How is anti-Blackness exhibited in each system? Then ask yourself, what are you doing to actively disrupt? Next. Now remember, continuously disrupt. As you're looking, are Black people being hired, paid, promoted comparably? If not, how can you advocate for change? Now we're talking about action steps. And when you get to the action planning, pull up this slide and think about it. Who are the policymakers in your organization? Next. Now, continuously disrupt, use your power and privilege to push for change. Where do you spend your money? Disrupt anti-Blackness. Support small and large Black-owned businesses. Also, Black creatives through PayPal, Venmo, and their Patreon pages. Next, continuously disrupt anti-Blackness. Put your money toward organizations that are anti-racist. And most importantly, as I think about that, look at your networks. How do people get hired? Word of mouth, all the good things, whether it's rentals, everything, jobs, opportunity. We send it out to our people on our networks first before it hits the public. Share your networks and your connections. Look for Black job seekers on LinkedIn and use your access, your privilege. Open up your networks to Black job seekers. Big one. Farrell, can you address this?
Yes, so it's important to teach your children to be anti-racist, and there's a lot of ways you can do that. So representation and perception of image is one of the most massive ways that you can go about teaching this. If you can have people presented, if you can have minorities, if you can have Black people presented in different ways that are less conducive to colluding with these issues that we're describing, with all of these aspects of anti-Blackness that are so often rooted in these images, then that's an important way to take that away. And sometimes it doesn't even just mean blatant negative stereotypes. Sometimes it means putting him in more actively not just simply actively positive, but sometimes prestigious roles, and not just prestigious roles in reality, but that could even be in media and in fiction. That can be in movies, TVs, books. So something that in my personal circle we had mentioned about the representation of Black people in movies is sometimes we don't want another hopeful slave movie. Sometimes we want a movie about Black kings. Sometimes we want books about African mythology. Even if stories about the triangle trade and the enslavement of Black people can be very powerful, if you that's all the media that you put out there, then that still gets associated purely with Black people, and that will still be one of the first things you think of, and that's still how those concepts get baked into these institutional, intergenerational aspects of thinking about an entire group of people. So not just books about trauma and pain. Have your children read about Mansa Musa, the history of ancient Nubia, the Asante Empire, books like The Aristocrat Baby. The book is anti-racist and Not My Idea. The book about whiteness should be mandatory reading for children both at school and at home. And as difficult as these things are attempted to be made by those that would see these institutions continue, it's an important fight to fight. Make sure that you make sure that you are educating yourself and that you're helping those close to you to educate on these concepts if you truly want them to be embraced.
Thank you, Farrell. So now we can move into the next part of our program, and that is our interactive panel. So here we are on Zoom. So let's take the other people out. Can we have just the people who are on the panel? That would be Pharaoh, Jordana. If we can take out everybody else, then we can see, we've got Reggie, Tina, Crystal,
Mina.
Nina.
Diane, are you suggesting that everybody who's not on the panel turn their video off and then we hide non-video?
Is that the way to do that? Okay.
That would, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
fine. So just
Okay.
for this part, if people
Yeah.
can hide their video, and then I'll hide the non-video participants for
Okay,
you.
yeah, if you can do that. You see, I'm not all, I'm technological, and Nancy's one of them. Okay, Nancy, yes?
Yeah.
Do you have something, Nancy?
Yeah, a participant requested that all the facilitators at least say their name.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that now. Okay, so, and take out, okay, so.
Anybody know how to do, I'm trying to figure out how to do that from here.
Okay, so.
What are you trying to do? Sorry.
Hide non-video participants. I know it's a setting. I just can't find it for some. Oh, wait.
Well, there, I don't see them.
By your name. Oh, no, maybe not.
No,
Sorry.
it's like for everybody. I'm trying to do
Okay,
that.
remove, okay. So here we are. And let's just, for the sake of everybody, what Nancy just said that people wanted, can we just, no, let's just.
There we go. Okay.
Let's stay with our program because we're going to do that. So Pharaoh, can you start the self-identify, and then everybody will identify themselves. And go ahead, Pharaoh.
Sure, that's always an important part of everything that we do through this collective, is that we like to make clear our personal identification on aspects of race, ethnicity, identity, and other important aspects like that. So my name is Pharaoh Saunders, and I identify as a Black man.
Okay, so now ask, okay, Jordana.
And what are your pronouns, Pharaoh?
He, him.
Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Jordana Hart. I'm white, I'm Jewish, I'm Canadian, and my pronouns, as you can see, are she and her.
Nancy?
Good morning. I'm Nancy Rogine. I'm a white woman of midlife, and I live in Portland, Oregon.
I'm just going across my screen, so.
My pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. Reggie?
Hi, everyone. My name's Raggy. My pronouns are she, her. I'm based in London, and I identify as a queer South Asian woman.
Tina?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Cabral. I identify as she and her, and I'm a Black woman from Somerville, Massachusetts, of Cape Verdean ancestry.
Mina?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mina Kim. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Korean American, and for the purposes of this conversation today, I also want to identify as East Asian.
Crystal?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal Chandler. My pronouns are she and her as well. I identify both as a Black woman and as a Barbadian American. My family's from Barbados. And yeah, I also fall on the queer pansexual spectrum as well, like my friend Raggy. And I'm excited for you guys to be here.
Well, great. And I am Diane Wong, along with Pharaoh Saunders. We are facilitating this segment. I am a Black woman of a multiracial lineage, and she, her. I'm just getting used to that. I mean, I'm out of the generation, so, but I see it's important, she, her. So let's just, everybody, just take a deep breath in before we start, even if you're off camera. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Relax, relax, relax. So as we're getting ready to start, before we start, become aware of what's going on inside of you. Did that breath relax you enough? If not, can you relax more? How are, what was said, where we are so far, just how is that all falling inside of you? and just become aware of what's going on inside. So we've got a couple of questions we're going to grapple with today. And for all of the participants who aren't participating in this panel, remember, this group is exactly what you're going to find yourself in short order. And so, and you're going to grapple with the exact same questions. So look at this and feel into what's going on here. So the first question, and I'm just going to throw it out to the group. Also, as a facilitator, I'm going to be comfortable calling on people. I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to participate. The first question, for you, what is anti-Blackness? What does it mean to you? Mina, you stepped forward, so
Yeah.
what does it mean to you?
So I go back and forth on this to a certain degree, because I think at the heart of it, it's really simple, and that it's having negative thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and also actions against Black people. Also, having the same negative emotions and responses to the color Black and to darkness. And something that I've been thinking about is how, you know, like that is for me the core of anti-Blackness, but I also think there's this other element and the other aspects that feed into sustaining and supporting anti-Blackness, which has to do with sort of, you know, awareness and knowledge and curiosity of Black folks and Black cultures. And also knowing your own culture as a way to see how your racial identity, but then also ethnic identity has played into perhaps, you know, supporting some of those systemic structures of anti-Blackness.
And Crystal, I saw you shaking your head, so
yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I was actually writing some notes down because Mina, you touched upon a lot of what I was going to say as well. But to add to what Mina was saying, I think it's also like the unconscious bias as well. That's really part of the anti-Blackness. You know, it's that the things that we don't think about because they've been ingrained and programmed into our minds. So we also think that they're the norm, right? Even though they do hold these anti-Black sentiments and perpetuate the cycles. And then the other thing that I wanted to just touch upon really quick is that I always think about, well, two things I want to touch upon really quickly. That code switching, that's something that has been, especially for people of color, especially Black people, that we have to conform ourselves based on the spaces that we're in, right? And that, you know, our white counterparts don't necessarily have to do that or don't actually have to be conscious and aware of it as a survival technique. So yeah, what Mina said plus that is how I definitely define anti-Blackness.
Jordana, what about you?
So I'm about, if we're going to speak personally, I'm about more than 40 years into my journey. When I think about anti-Blackness, as a white person and a Jewish person, I think about white supremacy. So every morning I wake up and I say to myself, I think of the people I love, the Black people I love, and how they're going to be hurt that day in many ways, microaggressions, their intelligence being questioned. I also think about what's going to happen to me that day, the things that aren't going to happen to me, and the benefits I'm going to get. So this is every day of my life. And I think about how I'm going to fight it. And we can talk about it in the smaller groups, but those are the ways I look at it. And I look at realistic things. I'm going into a restaurant with my Black girlfriends, and I'm already expecting that they're going to somehow be disrespected. And what is my role in dealing with that? I'm not a white savior, but I also have a privileged position. And this is something I've dealt with over many years with my Black girlfriends. I'm thinking about in real estate, you know, I went to look for an apartment and the white real estate lady was really steering me away from where I wanted to live, presuming in our white silent club that I didn't want to live where I told her I wanted to live. And that's the flip side of steering Black people and people of color from what are white neighborhoods. And Diane, you said it, we're fully segregated. And this is one reason. So I pushed back on her. I also filed a complaint against her. And so anyway, those are just examples of things that I think about every day from when I wake up as a white person.
And so Jordana has kind of moved us, transitioned us. So let's do both questions. As you speak, let's also talk about how does anti-Blackness come up within and around you? How does it come up? And then the other part of that question, how have you personally, because we're modeling, how have you personally internalized anti-Blackness?
I can start if you guys want. I think for me, the way it's really shown up in a way that I think is tangible and that people can understand is hair. And just the ways in which Black women, and myself specifically, have had to, you know, tame our hair and manipulate it so that, you know, we are not perceived as threatening or too Black, right, in certain spaces. And it's only now, I'm 27, it's only now, honestly, you know, within recent years that I'm actually learning to, what to do with my natural hair, right? Because from birth, I'm taught that it needs to be, you know, put in extensions, weaves, you know, things like that, needs to be straightened and permed. And so for me, it's, it shows up in like my hair, you know, and that's it seems, you know, basic for some folks, but I think what's important is that, you know, I was taught when I go into interviews, right, like not to wear my natural hair, not to wear natural hairstyles, you know, have a weave, maybe a nice curly weave, or, you know, straight hair, right? So really conforming to the ideas of whiteness, and that whiteness is acceptable, and that if you conform to whiteness, you will get jobs, and if you conform to whiteness, then you will succeed. But I think on the flip side of that is realizing that no matter how much you conform, you don't actually gain the access if you're conforming, you know what I mean? Like you kind of have to go into these spaces like as your authentic self. And so it's, for me, learning my authentic self, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Reggie.
Bill, I want to come in and slightly slow it down because, you know, it's just bang, bang, bang. And I guess for me, it's really horrible. It's really shocking. It's really painful, right? And I want to give a little bit of space for that. Because for me, anti-Blackness is just hatred, right? And the racism that I've experienced my whole life, particularly when I was a kid, right? It was a daily occurrence that somebody would be chasing me or doing something like that or trying to hurt me, because that's what it was like in London in those days for kids, right? What I've experienced and the impact that's had on me, it's like times it by 3 at least, right? You know, and our histories, our colonialism, you know, everything we've experienced, which is horrific. When I think about anti-Blackness, I just need to multiply it. And I think it's been more of a recent realization for me. You know, I was very much stuck in my victim place about, oh, I've been through all of these horrific experiences of racism and stuck in the healing of that. And I think, I feel shy to say it, right? But I'm saying it because there'll be so many in this room that will feel the same. I think post George Floyd, I had a massive wake up call, right? Even though I'd seen so many people murdered before and with such impunity, yeah, I had a massive wake up call. And I realized that, you know, I don't go to the tube and feel scared that somebody's gonna hurt me. I'm not scared for my nephew in the street. I'm a barrister, I'm a human rights barrister, right? Last week, right, a young barrister, a young Black barrister, right, all suited and booted, going to court with a posh little bag like we carry as barristers, right? You know, she was like in her 20s, right, just qualified, right? She got stopped and searched on the way to court. I mean, it's just a joke. You know, you can't, there's just, it doesn't matter what you do, there's always that moment, and you don't know where it's going to come, where someone's going to smack you in the face and try and humiliate you. So for me, anti-Blackness is just pure hatred. And, you know, what's coming across the world, so much of it is aimed particularly at the Black community, which makes me so angry, right? And so much of, you know, like in my communities, there's so much colorism, and billions are spent on skin lightening colors, because the darker you look, the more problematic it is. We all need to look like we're white. And if we're in medium in the brown, we want to try and look a little bit more white. So for me, it's just a horrific, repetitive, it's just repetitive hate. And I won't stand for it anymore. And I'll stand up with you, alongside you, and fight with you.
That's huge. Yeah, I was thinking a lot of those same things. As colorism isn't something unique to anti-Blackness, but it's something that's common in a lot of spheres of racism, but it's massively important within the concept of anti-Blackness, you know, being told not to spend too much time in the sun, you know, during the summertime to avoid getting darker and things like that. It all bleeds into similar places. One of the aspects of anti-Blackness that I think about the most, and have thought about the most as of the last few years, is, you know, my biggest things are like history and theology. So one in particular that has always struck me as particularly twisted is how things, specifically like Vodun or voodoo, is seen as evil, not just by white people, but by even Black people. And how Black people have been literally tricked and deceived into thinking that their own culture and their native religion is evil, is literally satanic, just because of confusion and difference between theological backing. And it's baffled me that people would be so scared of something that is from their own history and their own culture that they can't even talk about it. It'll literally take their breath away because they're so thoroughly deceived into seeing it as an evil thing. And that's one of the examples, and it's a large example of these sorts of concepts of being taken and having aspects of your culture and your identity and your history being changed and altered into something that is seen as evil. And so you then see yourself and your history and where you come from as evil.
For me, you guys are touching upon all points that I was going to say, but just briefly, as Diane mentioned in the beginning, we have to get into the space of love. And for me, anti-Blackness is the opposite of that. It's fear, it's deception, it's all the negative notions and connotations and pain and suffering. And we are all sitting in the fire because of that. Black, white, Asian, whatever your background is, we're all perpetuating that system, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. And Crystal, I remember a saying you made in one of our meetings is, yeah, we know all lives matter, but if we don't address the Black lives right now, you know, then we're all doomed, essentially. We're all doomed. And these are the crossroads right now. And just one story about internalization of Blackness for me, or anti-Blackness, is I remember I was in college and I was thinking of joining a particular sorority. I won't name any in particular, but there was one where there were more darker hued Black women, and there was one where there's more lighter skinned hued Black women. And so everybody was my friends were encouraging me to go towards more of the lighter skinned, but they didn't have that sort of kind of the notions or standing up for what I really wanted, but everybody was drawing me towards that. And I eventually didn't pledge any because of that. But it not only marginalizes us against society at a large, but it also keeps us away from each other. It's a division. So it's like, okay, what is this about now? And so I always regretted not standing up for what I believe in and not going inward and being who I am. And that's another thing. It takes us away from who we are, our heritage, our family, who we really want to be. And then we internalize all of these negative emotions, you know, seen as criminals. Then we think of ourselves as criminals. And I also experienced the feeling of being in a store and somebody's watching you because they think you might walk out with something. It breaks you. It's traumatic. It's painful. And so we're all in this healing and moving forward from this. It's painful. It's traumatic.
Nancy.
Yeah.
Nancy.
I want to say, thank you for slowing things down a little, but to me, anti-Black racism is a kind of a pervasive, sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious belief system in white superiority. So it's a polarity. They're linked white invaders from Europe that came into an indigenous culture and totally believed that their civilization and their cultures were far superior, and that actually white people from Europe are the definition of human being. And so ever since our country was founded, we've been swimming view at the very bottom. So of the pain and the torture and the lynchings and the demonization, any book you read, almost any book you read from European writing over the centuries puts Black people at the bottom, has them as uncivilized, barbaric.
So Nancy, Nancy, you're really
that's the
fading.
worldview that we live in.
Nancy, can you hear me? You're going in and out. So you probably need to reboot your connection. So while Nancy is doing that, so what we've been talking about, we brought up anti-Blackness as hatred and anti-Blackness as
I will.
Pushing you away from your culture, and just all the ways that we adapt to anti-Blackness. But now let's go deeper, because if we also have this let's talk about our own perpetuation of anti-Blackness. And so just find that, because that's the harder thing. That's what we're going to ask participants to do, because for me, if I can't find it, then I can address it. So when does it pop up? I mean, how does it pop up in your mind and you see it and you feel an anti-Blackness within you? And then, Reggie?
This feels kind of edgy, right?
It's totally edgy. I guarantee you it's edgy, right?
Yeah, but it's super important, yeah. And I've been on this journey for a while of I know almost everyone in this room gets racist thoughts, right? And the reason, and they shove it down, they pretend they don't, and they shove it down, right? And the reason I know that is because I get them myself, yeah? And so I live in an area of South London where there's a large Black community. And I think it's just all the messages I've received always in my life that I've just looked down and my cat's walked in, who's black and white and perfectly happy, right? Why can't we all be like my cat, who's so cool? I think I come from the South Asian community, and we are really quite terrible in relation to our racism against Black people. My my mum is from East Africa. And I remember asking her when I was a kid, why do you hate black people so much? And she was like, but you know, they're lower than us, right? And just completely serious. And those kinds of messages have been very common in the Asian community, not necessarily with my generation, right? But around the more traditional community and around the older generation. And they've never really been challenged. Yeah. So more recently, I've seen a number of groups springing up, wanting to talk to the elders, wanting to do this, wanting to do that. And so what happens for me is, and it's not just that, it's like everything we've seen, right? Newspapers, media, advertising, you know, books, television, teachers, everything has centralized whiteness and marginalized color, particularly blackness, right, which is at the end of that scale, right? And so we've all been conditioned and we're all in this soup. And so when I go out, I notice myself, right, I hear some noise behind me and there'll be 3 young black boys and I'll sort of grab my bag automatically, right? And then I'll just look again and I'm like, these are kids, right? They're 16 years old, they're just chatting and laughing and they're going down the street, right? So I kind of have to try and recreate those patterns and let my bag go and smile sweetly and they kind of look at me weirdly, right? And I notice myself listening to somebody who has an accent, right? So I go into court and there'll be another barrister and he might have an accent, right? And particularly if he's African, I notice myself kind of zone out and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And I have to really listen. Yeah, so I know, but what happens is I notice it very quickly now. Whereas before it used to be hard to notice, but the more that happens, I notice it and change it, notice it and change it, notice it and change it. And I find myself doing it less and less. But that's why, given, you know, I am who I am and I've always stood, I know you want everyone to see you, right? She wants everyone to see her and make a fuss. I'm one of those lesbians that has a cat who they adore, right? So, so I kind of notice it more and more, and I feel it's shifting, but I don't think it's easy. Yeah, and I'm somebody who's represented asylum seekers 20 years, being involved in anti-racism work forever, is a hardcore political activist, right? And it catches me, right? I'm in the soup as well.
I love that, Raggy. Absolutely love that. And I think I really wanted to touch upon, I guess, like the global aspect of this. You know, I think most of us on here are probably based in the US, but, you know, really thinking about this from a global perspective is really important, because nothing is, you know, siloed like in the United States or even in the Western, you know, hemisphere. But 2 things I wanted to bring up is, you know, like growing up for me, you know, I grew up in a West Indian household, and within my household, I was taught that other Black people, you know, like Raggy said, right, were like lower than us, right? And so I was taught, you know, like Haitians, Jamaicans, and specifically Black Americans, right, that those 3 groups were lower than us, right? And that we should look down upon them, right? And so I carried those sentiments like with me, you know, and they really do get ingrained in you, especially when this happens as a child. And that's why I put in the chat that, you know, the anti-racism work like starts at home, you know, because a lot of these things that I learned before I ever hit a classroom, before a teacher ever opened a whitewashed history book, you know. So that's one point that I wanted to make. And then also too, I traveled to South Korea a couple years ago, and I think that being in South Korea like really showed me how much of like, I guess like a novelty or like a commodity Black people seem to be in other countries. You know, we would go and travel places, you know, around South Korea and Seoul, and it was like a lot of them were like Chinese tourists specifically, would want to come up and like take pictures with us, you know. And I think part of it, you know, definitely could do with the fact that there aren't a lot, they live in a more homogenous like country. But nonetheless, it made me feel very like commoditized and like, you know, just people like, oh my God, like, you know, your hair, your skin, like that. Those are the 2 things that I wanted to just kind of touch upon. But I think, again, just going back to the fact that anti-Blackness, you know, it starts young, it starts at home. And, you know, no matter how old you are, like, you know, the participants on this call right now, it's never too late to reprogram, right? Like I know the older generations, like my grandmother, and, you know, they learned it as well, you know, and so I don't necessarily like hold that against them, because they too were products of the systems that oppressed them, right? And they too were taught, you know, anti-Black ways of living, honestly, and ways of survival that eventually ended up being, you know, really detrimental in the long run. So I guess that's why we're here, right? Is to like end a lot of these cycles, for sure.
And I want to bring Nancy as soon as she comes back again. I want to make sure that she has a chance. But while we just listened to Crystal, and before that we listened to Raggy. And I just want to put some lines underneath and some stars next to what they're saying, because what they're describing, listen to what Raggy said, listen to what Crystal said. They're describing a process for how you start to eliminate this inside of you. What Raggy said was she noticed it. And every time she noticed it it got a little less and less and less. This is not complicated. It's not a hard thing to do. We'll talk about it. Raggy, maybe we can talk about this at the end, what the process is.
Yeah, I want to say a little bit more.
You can absolutely do it. But what it means is you have to commit. You have to decide that you're going to notice, and you're not going to just dump it back in. You're gonna see it, and then you're gonna breathe into it. You're gonna release it every single time, and it will go away. Nancy, could you come back in and tell us about how anti-Black racism manifests itself inside of you?
I grew up with lots and lots of messages about how people of color, especially people from Africa, were not even really human beings. And I found that offensive because my father also thought women were not human beings. So I've identified with fighting against internalized superiority and anti-Black racism my whole life. I fought against it mostly by making friends with as many people of color as I could from the time I could. And that I've broken down over the years, a lot of my prejudices, but I'm just so aware that from the time I was little, I was presumed to be in a group that had the right to make these stereotypes, to call people and put them into categories. And that's what's hard to get rid of, that internalized sense of somehow I should have the right to say how society is or what cultures are better or worse. It's an inhaled sense of power that's invisible. I mean, why should a little girl feel like she has this power? So it's so unconscious in some ways. And I've been horrified to find out how much racism is still inside of me. I'm ashamed. I've been working my whole life to eradicate it. So I actually don't completely agree with you, Diane, that it's so simple. I just think it takes a commitment, and I want a different world. I want a different view of the world. I want a world in which all cultures, you know, Ibram Kendi talks about cultural racism, not just color, but thinking some cultures have more value to the human race than other cultures. And if we look in our hearts, most of us do have biases about this. I mean, I know most of my friends who are white think Italy has more to offer than Samoa, but how many of us think that too? And so I'm just continually trying to peel off the onion skins of my own racism and anti-Black racism.
The anti-Black racism. Thank you, Nancy. And let me just be clear. It's a simple process, but you have to decide. And if you're raised in a white supremacist society and you're in it, for me, I was never raised as a white supremacist. So the more you have, the more you have to do, but the process is the same. You have to notice it every single time. And so Jordana, as a white Jewish woman, Canadian, how does this anti-Blackness arise in you? Or how did it arise? Or what's going on with the anti-Blackness in you? You're can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Better? Okay. I would just want to say that Raggy and Nancy were very courageous. It's very hard to admit to those things. And I have to say, given the fact that I've been fighting against this myself for more than 4 decades, my heart is still beating strongly in my chest every time I facilitate, I talk about, I'm in a situation, and it'll never, I don't know if that will ever go away. I'm not saying that's a sign of anti-Blackness, but it's a tension inside my body as a white Jewish person. I also wanted to say, I just wanted to bring up something interesting. When we put this panel together, there was a debate of whether I could manifest both a white person and a Jewish person. And I found that interesting. It ended up that we needed a Jewish person and a white person, which would be Nancy. And again, it just goes around this whole issue of who's white presenting. I'm coming from a point where Jewish people are entirely white and white presenting. They benefit from the privileges. I benefit from the privileges. In terms of anti-Blackness, what I can say is, given my life history, which some people on this call know very well on this Zoom call, one of the issues I have is this idea of white saviorism. So I go back to the examples I brought up before, and I've been in many of those my whole life, where I'm with Black female friends, Black friends, African-American friends, whether it's Boston, Miami, in the DC area. And constantly, as a white person in that circle, I see what's happening. So when I hear other white people say, you know, people are overreacting and so forth, you know, I know that that's not true, and I've seen it. My issue is, how do I deal with those? Again, if you are there as a white person and use your privilege, you might be doing the right thing. You also might be acting the white savior. And it goes back to intent versus impact. What is my intent? And ultimately, what's the impact on the people I'm with and the people who are disrespecting and treating the people I'm with in a certain way where they're not treating me that way? And so that's what I grapple with, especially now with everything going on, is what is the role of a white person in that circumstance? And again, I mean, this sounds odd, even though it's been 40 years, it's been 40 years of my personal life with my personal circle of friends who happen to be mostly Black people. So in terms of activism, this is relatively new in a public sphere. And so I'm learning how to do that. And these questions are coming to me now, and I'm grappling with them as well.
So I just got a 10-minute warning, and so we're going to end on time so that the small group can have its full hour. And so there are 7 of us. I'd like to bring Pharaoh in because he's a male, he's Black, and he's an African American. So I think that perspective is important. So if we could just, each one of you, 1 minute, what's the most important thing you can say to your own anti-Blackness? So what is it about your own anti-Blackness, whatever you want to say? Let's start with Mina because she started us.
1 minute. Well, I actually wanted to, maybe I can do this as my wrap up, but I wanted to respond to what Raggy said in terms of like catching myself in the soup, and what Tina and also Crystal were saying about perpetuating these systems of anti-Blackness. And for me, like, I remember when I used to get really annoyed and frustrated and sometimes angry at this Black-white binary without really realizing that, you know, it is a hierarchy of racial superiority that myself as an Asian, I'm contributing to. And so, like, I'm thinking about, you know, in terms of my anti-Blackness and how it's been coming up for me, like, one of the police officers involved in the George Floyd murder was Hmong, and he's sorry, his name is Tu Tao, I think. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And I remember my first instinct to that news coming out was how, oh, well, he's Southeast Asian. I don't know if I identify with Southeast Asians. And, you know, of course, like the Asian American coalition is a pan-ethnic coalition. And so, of course, like I have to own it and I have to speak up against it, right? Same thing with, you know, the LA riots. There was a Korean grocery store owner, this was in '92, although this happened in '91, I think. But there was a Korean grocery store owner who shot and killed a 15-year-old African-American girl who came in because the owner thought that the girl was stealing orange juice. And I remember when I like first came, and the girl's name was Latasha Harlins, I forget if I said that. But I remember when I first heard of the story, my immediate thought was, well, you know, no one was going to support the Korean immigrant communities that were there. And they were left to fend for themselves. But then as I have shifted my framing of and sort of understanding of, you know, sort of where Korean Americans fit into this Black and white binary, is that there are all sorts of ways that we have internalized white supremacy and how that shows up in the press coverage among Korean American media about these types of incidents, and how it really is, you know, how it really is up to myself, but then also, you know, folks in my networks and also just like the Korean American community to kind of own up to that internalized whiteness that we have, as well as the anti-Blackness. So just wanted to share that. And I think it's always like I said before, it's always raising your awareness through dialogue, such as, you know, the one we're having right now, but then also educating yourself so that you have, you know, a multidimensional perspective on what actually happens, what actually happened in history and what's happening in the present.
Thank you, Mina. Now we're really pressed. I see Crystal is really looking. And so let me call on Crystal. She's really engaged.
Sure. Can you reframe the question one more time for me, Diane? Please?
Yeah, just to wrap it up, on your own anti-Blackness, what's the most important thing that for you that you feel or do, or what? What's the biggest thing in anti-Blackness?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's holding space for myself to understand that these systems didn't start with me. I didn't cause anti-Blackness, right? Like nobody here, you know, caused racism and anti-Blackness, right? But we did perpetuate it. We did continue the cycles. And so I think for me, I hold space in recognizing that. And also I try to be patient with myself, I think, as well, in terms of this process. It's frustrating when you get to realize the ways in which you've been perpetuating cycles. And I know I can be really hard on myself. So I think that's part of it, is like, you know, giving myself space to say, okay, like I got it wrong this time, you know, how can I do it better next time? And just, you know, creating that space for myself personally, like in my day-to-day life, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The audience, the participants would like to hear from Farrell on this question.
Sure.
How does anti-Blackness manifest itself in you? And what do you think about that?
I would say that I would personally believe that I wasn't raised in much of a framework of white supremacy, but even still, there are lots of subversive ways that even, you know, unintentionally, lots of things can slip in. I would say personally, spiritually, I had mentioned that earlier. I had something that I think about a lot as of recently, since I've been, I'd say since late teenage into, you know, currently as a younger adult. That's been like a major part of how I think about the relationship with anti-Blackness and the concept of spiritual domination of, you know, the large faiths, which are not even native to Europe, but, you know, native to the Middle East, and then branched out from there into spreading around.
And Farrell, could you?
My ancestry in that sense.
speak directly to how it manifests in you. What are your
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, because I was raised, I wasn't raised with those things, and those things were barely taught to me, and those are largely things that I've thought about, is like how I feel like being raised in those senses and, you know, thinking of those things as other rather than as a part of me is an aspect of that. I would also say that even though it wasn't something that I gained from my family personally, through, you know, acquaintances and through friends, a lot of the aspects of, you know, like even within the black race, like concept of, you know, competition between ethnicity, not even ethnicity, that's a lie, nationalities of black people are something that I heard externally. And I would say when I was younger, that might have been something I thought about, like something that Crystal had mentioned, you know, especially from Caribbeans, you know, Caribbean Americans, you know, thinking of or Afro-Caribbean, so I'm trying to say, thinking of, you know, each other as above or below one another and things like that. But something that my grandfather had told me when I was fairly young, my father's father, was that the only difference between a Jamaican, a Barbadian, a Haitian, a Dominican, an African American is if their slave master was American, British, French, or Spanish, and that's it. Because besides that, we are literally the same ethnicities. That's why I had to correct myself. We're mostly from, you know, different West African ethnicities, but Jamaican, Barbadian, African American, those aren't ethnicities. Those are cultures and nationalities.
Yeah, thank you, Farrell. The ship, it depends on where the ship went. Because these ships left from Africa and they spread us around, but we're still coming from the same African continent. So anybody want to wrap up this whole thing? It's time for us to be done.
I'll just say one thing if I can, right? You know, show up, do the work, right? It's not just about reading books, right? It's about doing your personal work, looking at where these things show up in you. You know, take the plunge, right? Have some guts, show up, take accountability, take responsibility, stand with us, stop fucking sitting on your butt, right? The world is in disarray. We need to be together and to step up.
Thank you. Thank you, Reggie. And let me just remember us back to the part where we started in the introduction. Look with what you can do yourself. Look at your networks. I can't say how important that is. Share your network. Support Black people, not just these big organizations. Support the small organization. Support your Patreon Black people. Support your there's lots of ways. Go to LinkedIn, find the Black people, share your networks. Okay, thank you. Heather, okay, now what are we gonna do, Heather? Are we gonna just fly into our breakout rooms?
Yeah, so I think if people want to, you can turn your videos on if you'd like, and then we're gonna be breaking you into your breakout rooms. And so we're gonna be in those rooms for about an hour until 12:35, and that is gonna be our lunch break time. So I believe Adam has all the breakout rooms set up.
Yeah, and your facilitator will introduce themselves to you. There are some facilitators that were not on this panel. So, I mean, there's Lane and there's other people that are on the panel. Shout out to Asia Hardison. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I guess Adam, take us away.
To the rooms with ye.
The magic of technology. Okay, so welcome. Here we are. My name is Diane Wong. This is Mina Kim. We are co-facilitating this session. So, so we're going to start. We're going to ask you the same questions. We're going to go through the same thing that we just saw, including the part where we self-identify. So we're going to start over. I'm Diane Wong. I'm a Black woman, multiracial heritage. And if you can turn on your microphones. Okay, so Mina, I'll let you be last and I'll let Felice start.
Hi everyone, my name is Felice and I am of Vietnamese.
Charlene, I think there's background noise happening on your end. If you wouldn't
Yes,
mind.
And I have both, I use both pronouns. I mean, I've largely, most of my life, identified as, you know, a she, but increasingly I feel, I don't know, very constrained by that. So I'm just also happy to just recognize this internal, that there's a large part of me that identifies somehow beyond that particular sex. With that, I'll pass to the next person.
Okay, on my screen, I see Eleni and Maria.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Eleni. I am from Athens, Greece, and identify as white. I grew up in Greece, here in Athens, and as a she, her, and a lesbian. I work as a teacher in a private high school, and I'm here to learn.
That's great. So Maria.
Oh, hi. I'm Maria, she, her. Also, I am Greek. I was just laughing because I'm a teacher. I'm a lesbian as well. I'm white. And nice to be with you.
Great. Cindy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy. I'm white. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, in the States. I'm a psychologist. I'm in a relationship with Rami. I think that's it. I use she and her pronouns.
Great. And Rami.
Yes, hi. I'm Rami, and I am white. I use she, her pronouns. Cindy and I have a psychotherapy practice that is specifically for anyone who identifies as marginalized. We are process workers. We've been involved with process work for over 20 years, and we're working hard, and I feel like I'm fumbling along, and I'm working hard. And we were here before for the Sitting in the Fire 1, and I'm glad to be here now. What else? I think I'll stop there. Oh, and I'm Jewish.
Great. Thank you. And is it Charlene?
Yes, this is Charlene. I apologize for the background noise in advance. I'm trying to keep an eye on my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, as she plays outside with the neighbors. But I identify as she, her. I am mixed race, originally from California, but my father is Iranian and my mother is Haitian, Dominican. I'm currently living in Switzerland. I am a humanitarian worker, and I'm happy to be a part of this conversation and explore my identity a bit more and get in touch with and it's the time to really space to be a community as well. So thank you for having me.
Yes, and Mina.
Hi everyone, I'm Mina Kim. I use she, her pronouns, and I am Asian American.
So we've got these questions, and Mina, do you want to start with talking about the questions and starting to ask people? We're going to call on you. So you can, this is interactive. You can talk. This isn't 1, 2, 3 like that. You can talk. But in the meantime, we're going to also call on you. So go ahead, Mina.
Sure. So the first question is around.
Cindy.
Sorry, Mina. I should probably say I have a client scheduled at 11, so which is 15 minutes from now our time, that I could not change. So I'm going to jump out and come back in, and I apologize. I wouldn't have planned it this way, but it turned out that way.
Thank you. But Rami can stay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what is anti-Blackness and what does it mean to you? And so it's a very open question. And as you saw when we did the panel discussion, we all sort of had different ways of approaching it. So yeah, what does anti-Blackness mean to you?
Can I say, can I begin?
Oh, yes.
So I'm Eleni again, because there's Eleni Maria, so I'm Eleni. When this question, I heard the question earlier in the panel, and I looked at Maria and I said, really, what is it? And like, I consider myself, you know, like anti-racist, and I'm here sitting by the fire, and even what sounded like the fundamental basic question, there was no content in my, so I have to confess that I guess being a white person, it is that sort of privilege to not really have an answer, to have to think about it, to say something, I mean, more meaningful, more personal, other than general, you know, things. Okay, I could say a number of things, anti-Blackness is this, that. So I'm thinking that is a starting point for me about what anti-Blackness is. Like that from this white privilege, I have never really needed to deal with these questions and think about them. And also, I think the other thing I have to say is probably personal, is that probably, which continues this thought, is that the first understanding until very recently I had of race is that others have race. You know, Black people have race. Never thinking about me as having a race. So it's through books. It's the idea of, it's an idea in books. So I'm trying to think of whiteness and being white as a race. And I mean, I believe in these attitudes of mine. This is anti-Blackness. And also what was it Raggi was saying about hate. Because this kind of hate, although in Greece and in the Balkans, there is, of course, a Black community in Athens, but it's more recent, let's say, but a lot of people of color. And that sort of hate is all around. I mean, against, from white Greeks against Greeks of color, Black Greeks. Hate, anti-Blackness is expressed through hate speech and through acts of abuse or violence in the streets, in neighborhoods.
That is remarkable. And so I'm going to remark on it. The notion that not even feeling ever the need to feel yourself as a race, especially as the white race, as anti-Blackness, that is remarkable. I'll have to remember that. And thank you for getting us
No,
started.
I thank you. I got this from last time from reading, what's her name? Robin DiAngelo. Like you know, it's not that, it's just a very recent realization.
So I can go if you're done. Cindy, before you go, you want to say something? Okay. So I was brought up in a Jewish household right after the war, after World War II. That's the war. And for me, my identity was around the one who suffers, the victim, the one that has to hide my Jewishness. And so I think in growing up, I kind of flattened the suffering equation. I kind of like, you suffer, Black people, I suffer, Jewish person. So in a way, that's an anti-Blackness, racist way of thinking of things, because I neutralized the suffering over there. So that is like a new thought for me. And in my household, there was always a distinction around class and a distinction around who to fear. So I grew up fearing Black people and thinking that they were in a class lower than me. So, so I notice I still walk around, like in my neighborhood, when there are like a whole group of Black people playing, or guys playing on the basketball court, I think, am I safe to walk by? So it persists in me as a fear. Even though I've had a lot of experience interacting with folks of color, it's still in there. It's still in there. And I have to admit that flattening was you know, it was just even a dozen years ago where I was flattening it out and not realizing the distinction and how that was impacting the other, meaning Black folks.
This is remarkable. And again, that flattening, yes. And so we're already into the second question. So let's just bring that question in. So as we talk, we have both questions. And the second question is, how does anti-Blackness, and you see we're keeping it on anti-Blackness because that's elusive and it feels difficult and we want to pull away from it, but we're not going to pull away because we must see it. How does anti-Blackness come up within and around you? And how have you internalized anti-Blackness, and how does it affect you?
Can we hear from Cindy since you have to go?
Sure. Well, the thing that Rami's sharing made me, well, I wanted to say one thing to the first question, which is that what I'm thinking this morning is about how there's like a core, like a pit, like a cherry pit at the heart of anti-Blackness. And I don't know really what it is. Something in me says it's a kind of attitude like hatred or like fear, but maybe it's something even more difficult to get our hands around. And the other side of it is just white supremacy. The other side is just, it's just like the flip. What I was thinking about when Rami was sharing is like how my father was a huge racist. I mean, he hated almost everyone, every ethnic, religious, racial derogation that was possible to, it seemed to me as a child, was possible to make, he was making on a fairly, I think, regular basis. He worked as a truck driver and interacted with a lot of people of color and had very strong negative and derogatory attitudes towards people of color, Black people in particular. well, Black people in particular, to this conversation. I'm not sure if it was particular for him. So like, I remember being around that, and even just saying it out loud, I can feel, you know, like how it makes me shudder a bit inside to think that. There was something frightening to me about his attitudes. They were filled with anger. And it was just very hard for me to digest, especially because I grew up in a largely Jewish community. You were not Jewish, and all of my Jewish friends were also subject to this kind of diminishment. So I think that for me, it's really hard to get my hands around this in myself because I lived with it in someone else and was against it as early as I can remember, feeling like, oh, this is like, why is he like this? What is going on? This can't be right. Even as a small child, I felt this can't be right. I think what's in me mostly now is like, you know, in a more like I have fear sometimes, like Rami was saying, I'll have fear if I'm somewhere and I feel that I am vulnerable, in particular to a Black man, more so than Black women. I don't know. That's what comes up for me right now.
And the first step for all of us is to notice it, and then to decide to keep noticing, and then every time you notice it, necessarily it will on its own diminish. There are other things you can do, but you have to see it. Felice.
Diane, thank you so much for facilitating this. I honestly, I guess I share, you know, Eleni's like shocking shame that it really wasn't really until today that I really asked myself a lot of these questions. It was like, I knew I was supposed to, but I kept procrastinating. And I think that is part of what we're talking about. Like, because I could just leave it for another day because it is not wasn't affecting my immediate life in my perception. But having thought about it in the last couple of hours, I started to feel that anti-Black racism is something to do with evil, basically, like the way that when evil expresses itself, it scapegoats and gaslights. So when it's like a weird, I don't know why human beings have this, but it's like, but I've noticed it is when evil, you know, which is the choice to do something that you know is going to harm someone, a being, and you do it anyway, is evil in my mind. And then when humans, I don't know of any other species on this planet that does that, but when humans decide to do that, they put the shame of that on the beings that they do it to. And then they make themselves to be the victims. And I think that's part of what anti-Black racism is. It's like, you're doing the shameful thing, but then somehow you make the other person the wrongdoer, and then you feel like you're being victimized by, you know, I don't know, like Black sexuality, or, you know, like, why is it that, you know, my mom, like, you know, rolls up her windows if she sees a Black, you know, like, to be afraid of that you're gonna get hurt. I mean, and it's so I'm just feeling right now that anti-Black racism is like this deep apologize for my language, but like mind fuck. And it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. Scapegoating and gaslighting is a horrible thing because of what it does to all of our humanity. And answering the question about you know, how I've seen it show up lately, I mean, I just, again, you know, thank you for the opportunity to just reflect in a safe place. I have a really dear Black, African-American male Black friend. I've known him for many years. We're very close. And I live in upstate New York, and there was a couple who were trying to rent out their little apartment. And I have to admit, I didn't let him know about it first. Like, I had a number of people that I could have reached out to let them know about this place, because it's lovely and it was affordable. And this complicated thing where I know that his race and related to that, right? Like, I also know, I just wasn't sure if he could regularly pay the rent. And then I didn't want it to be on me, you know, to introduce him to, you know, and what would, you know, like it all played out in this automatic way that, well, who did I end up introducing? You know, it was this white couple that I knew could pay it, and like, it would never compromise my stand, you know, like, and I feel really shitty about that. I feel really shitty about that. And I'm sure there's, you know, I don't know, there's probably lots of other things. And then so seeing how, well, you know, like what would it really mean to be like a real ally? It would mean like, okay, I recognize that, yeah, he doesn't, like, what if he doesn't pay the rent on time? What, like, could I be the kind of friend that would say to myself, could I help him? You know, because it's maybe part of the reason why he can't pay, you know, like his financial situation is the way it is because of systemic injustice that I've benefited from, you know, so a lot is coming up for me. And I'm just so grateful for the space to have these confrontations with myself, and to feel in some kind of solidarity with everyone that's taken the time to show up here to do this work.
I just want to thank everybody for being vulnerable. That was the intention of doing this. And you can't do something on anti-Blackness, which is all the way at the other end of white supremacy, and stuck there. We can't do that without believing, especially, look at the question. How does anti-Blackness come up within you and around you? How have you internalized it? And if you're going to be real, and we're going to touch our hearts and open up, then that's the reason that's why it's so pervasive. That's why it's so pervasive. But all of you, your willingness to go there, and this is what it takes, really. Charlene, can you speak on any of, well, the second question, which is, how does anti-Blackness come up within and around you, especially from a mixed race background? How does that work inside of you?
Absolutely, that's a very good question, and I've never had time to sit with these thoughts until this current movement, and have the way it sits with me, quite frankly, and this is the first time I'm admitting it to anyone, is my own family's, I would say, anti-Blackness or racism within our home, on the Haitian side, where I was never able to admit that heritage or that part of my family or where we came from. It was always something that we were taught to not disclose to others because it was something to be ashamed of, because Haiti is seen as a poor country. My family always associated themselves or identified as European to sort of hide this part of our heritage, of our identity. And being of mixed heritage then is already sort of confusing when you're trying to figure out which, you know, who you are growing up as a teenager. And then having one side of you that is in complete denial of its identity. At home, not at all, but outside, it was never something that we were able to be proud of, or I was even able to say to my friends or boyfriend or husband or partner at the time. It was never something that I could share, and it was always something that ate me up inside. And I realize now that is a form of, I guess, cultural racism internally. If my family couldn't even feel like we could be proud of our heritage or say who we are or where we're from, why is that? And I know it was always something that we tried to constantly distance ourselves from, in terms of African Americans being different, and my uncles and aunts and mother and grandmother, for that reason, always saying that the racism issue in America is for African Americans and that they're different from us, and which is something that I always struggled with and haven't been able to understand until now that I'm in my early 30s and starting to educate myself on this matter, and finally be proud of who I am, of my identity, trying to figure out more of my family background. But it's a very complex issue where I've never been able to identify with either fully the Persian side of my family or the Haitian side. And on the Haitian side, it was because we were in ourselves in denial of our own identity, to the point where, I mean, my mother had to, I mean, this is very personal and I don't know why I'm sharing it in this group, but she didn't even put her country, the correct country of birth, on my birth certificate, and had to change it later on because she was embarrassed of disclosing to my father at the time that they were Haitian. And that's, I don't know, that's, I don't know if that answers your question on how I've internalized anti-Blackness myself. But I think yeah, I definitely have, and now I'm trying to embrace my Blackness now. I think it's been, someone said earlier in the call when we were in the larger group that, you know, they were taught that Jamaicans, Haitians, and I think it was another group that were of lesser quality than them, or were below them, and that really sort of perpetuated this idea of my family not having to, I don't know, feeling ashamed of who they are. So yeah, it's and I guess maybe now subconsciously I've realized that I've sort of always grown up around a larger white community, but still not fully accepted as the only person in my group of friends, for instance, who's a person of color. And maybe that anti-Blackness is rooted in in again, like I said, the issues of my family not being able to embrace their own identity. So yeah, it's very complicated, but I'm now trying to, I'm in a mixed relationship now myself with a daughter of mixed heritage who does not appear, I mean, who looks more white than anything. And to the point where I've gotten asked if I was her nanny before at a park, and I'm educating myself so I can make sure I educate her and do right by my ancestors and her and myself in making sure that she's aware of her heritage and her culture, proud of it, embraces it, and can identify with it if she so chooses to later on. Does that answer your question?
Well, that not only answers my question, I really thank you for being able to reveal yourself. Really, that means that you were able to go down inside you. And you said that this is the first time you're speaking of these, but you went inside of you, down into the places that are just roiling with energy because they're unprocessed, unbrought up to the surface. So this is what we're doing. And what you also did, we've been talking about what it means to be racist. I mean, in some of the other people in the group. But what you're talking about is you have this.
You're frozen, Diane.
Frozen.
I think Diane was frozen.
Yeah, she froze up.
Well,
I was wondering if it was just me.
We'll see. I'm sure she'll come back. But just to continue the conversation, I don't know where Diane was going with it, but
it was building up, and
I know she'll come back though. But one thing that I wanted to know is how it is interesting because within anti-Blackness, there is this spectrum of feelings and behaviors. And Felice, like you talked about how anti-Blackness at its core is evil. It's, intentional decision making to harm Black folks. And then Shirlene, like as you were talking and going deep into
Hey, Dan. Something happened? Diane. Mushy mushy.